Would you like to learn about musical scales, why you use them, and learn the patterns so you can recognize all major and minor scales? Then keep watching! So, there are 12 notes in the musical alphabet. Now it's time for you to learn about scales. We will not go through every scale in this video because learning them all will take a lot of time and practice. But you are going to learn the essential rules of how scales work and why you use them. So basically, a scale is the language of a specific piece of music you create. When writing a song, you need to choose a musical language to write it in. That's what scales are for. A scale is a group of notes that form the building blocks of your song. Most common scales use a group of 7 notes. Those 7 notes will be used throughout the song to build melodies, chords, and harmonies. If you play any notes randomly on your keyboard, it will probably sound quite bad. Scales are used because the notes in them sound good together. It's like grammar in verbal language. Without grammar, the letters and words would not make any sense. There are 2 types of scales that are most common: major scales and minor scales. In music, the terms major and minor are used a lot. The only thing you need to remember for now is that major sounds happy and minor sounds sad. Next, you will learn about whole steps and half steps. Take a look at the keyboard and find middle C. If you go to the next key to the right as close as possible, you get to the black key called C sharp. That is the shortest distance you can go from one key to another, and this distance is called a half step. If you go back to middle C again, and this time you go 2 keys to the right, you get to the note D. This is called a whole step, and it's basically 2 half steps. So, why is this important? Well, it's because all scales have a mix of half steps and whole steps, and the specific order of half steps and whole step are what decides the name of the scale. Let me show you a practical example. The easiest scale to learn first is C major. This is because the C major scale is made of all white keys. So start on middle C and then go up 1 white note at a time until you get to the next C an octave above it. Congratulations, you have just played a scale, specifically the C major scale. Now let's take a look at the order of half steps and whole steps in the C major scale. Let's start with middle C. The next white key is D. And as you can see, there is a black key in between them. That means that this distance is a whole step. So between the first and second note of the C major scale, we have a whole step. Next we go from D to E, and again there is a black key in between those keys, so the distance from the second note to the third note of the C major scale is another whole step. Great! But now take notice, we have arrived at E, and the next note F does not have a black key in between. So this is the first half step of the scale. Awesome! Now you know how to count whole steps and half steps. Here is the good part. It turns out that all major scales share the same pattern for the order of whole steps and half steps. And the same goes for the minor scales. So basically, if you just learn 2 patterns, you can learn all the major scales and all the minor scales. Now let me teach you these 2 patterns. Let's call a whole step by the letter W and a half step by the letter H. So, here is the pattern of whole step and half steps for all major scales. Whole step, half step. Whole step, whole step, whole step, and half step. So if you want to learn all major scales, you have to learn this pattern. It's all whole steps, except between the third and fourth note of the scale, which is a half step, and between the seventh and eighth note, which is another half step. The eighth note is, by the way, the octave of the root note. So if you start with C, you arrive at the C an octave above it. The second pattern you need to learn is what all minor scales have in common. And the pattern is as follows: whole step, half step, whole step, half step, whole step, whole step. So for minor scales, it's all whole steps except from the second to the third note and the fifth to the sixth note. Second to third, fifth to sixth. A good way to see this in practice is to play the A minor scale, because as with the C major scale, it also consists of only white keys. But wait, why do the C major scale and A minor scale have the exact same notes, but they are named differently and sound differently? It is because they start on a different root note. That is what determines the name, and even though they share the same notes, the pattern of whole steps and half steps differ because of the different root notes. So, find the A key just below the middle C on your keyboard, and then go up on every white key until you get to the octave. You will have played the A minor scale, and you will hear that it sounds sad compared to C major scale. All minor scales sound sad because they follow the same pattern of whole step and half steps, and it is this very pattern which we translate to a sad sound. The opposite is true for all major scales, which has a pattern of whole steps and half steps that we hear as a happy sound. Awesome! Now you know what musical scales are, the essential rules of how they are built, as well as how and why you use them. Now go and make some music. I'm Mike, signing out, and you rock, my friends!
Click the subscribe button and feel the power.
Join the Music Makers group on Facebook and meet and connect with fellow music makers on the same journey as you.